And we're live. Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of Money Talk, Season 3, Money Talk. Season 3 is a little bit different. Our theme this season is all about building back better, because this season we're shining a light on stories of resilience, the kind of stories where life brings us to our breaking point, and somehow or another, we rise and we come back and we build back better. When my home burned down, I remember standing in this rubble and asking, and I think you probably want to see a picture of that. So if my personal, there we go. There's the rubble I was standing in the middle of. And hey, I mean, I can look at it today and say, hey, at least there's an ocean view, a better ocean view. But when I'm standing in the middle of all of that, and I'm standing in the middle of this rubble, everything that I had worked for 30 years, and it's gone. How do you come back from this? Everything that was familiar was gone. The walls that kept me safe, the memories that were built inside them, the sense of normal that I thought I could count on. Let's take that picture down because I want to talk to you. What shocked me most wasn't just the mere destruction. It was the randomness and the randomness of survival. Why did some houses stay? Some houses burn. How did some stay? How did some just completely obliterate? And we're not talking about, the refrigerators over here in a flood or the wash machines down the street in a tornado. Here, when I went, anything that I touched was gone. It was dust, ashes. That's all it was. Why did my home fall while another one stood? Why me, not them? And it's in those moments of the why that we have to find that moment for resilience, where our resilience is going to be tested most. And when I'm talking about resilience, I'm not talking about the resilience of a tennis ball. You know how you drop it so many times and we know that it's going to bounce back exactly at the same place? We don't bounce back to the same place. When you have something that really takes the breath away from you, or you're fighting for that last breath, I will tell you what, you don't resilient back to the same place. You have to find something within you that takes you better and farther. Because if you don't, well, there's a lot of people that don't, and you can stay there. You can stay stuck. That's the benefit, is what's done is done. What we can control is what we do next. The choice to stay buried in the ashes or to rise and to build again. Because resilience isn't just that, the rising. The moment when the smoke clears and through the scarred, we have to take a step forward. From ashes we rise, from endings we carve new beginnings. And from the rubble we learn that what's unshakable is not the house we lived in, but the strength that we carry within us. So today I really want to ask you to do one of two things. One, like and share us. Don't keep this to yourself. If you know somebody that's struggling, somebody that just came through a struggle, somebody that needs encouragement, send this to them. Send this link to them. Share it, like it on your own social media post. And two, I want you to stay tuned because we'll be right back.
I can show you how to be strong. Come on, follow me. Heard you looking for a hero. Well, look up, look up, look up, look up.
I got something to give. I have something to say. You know you got something to do.
Welcome to the stage, Linda Kaye.
And we are back. Resilience isn't exactly what our guest today is known best for. He's been told not once, but twice. No, not twice, but on 3 separate times that he only had 6 months to live. Now we've had a guest here that had 45 minutes to live, and he lived through it. And it isn't just the normal things that people go through, because if you get told you've got, a death sentence, some people just say, bring it, death, take me now. But when you've got something to do and you've got something to say, you have to get up again. It isn't how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get back up. For the last 13 years, he has lived with metastatic cancer, and yet he's still here. What the heck is metastatic? It goes from here to there and up here and over there and then everywhere. He doesn't just coach resilience, he embodies it. His journey shows us that even when life delivers the hardest blows, we still have the power to stand up, fight back, and keep building forward. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Tom LeNoble. Tom, welcome.
Hey, Linda, how are you today?
I'm going to tell you what, I just want to look at you for a moment and just think and look at you and go, what does a 3-time near-death experience look like? And we're looking at you. Talk me through your journey. What in the heck has happened? I know that you, as the CEO of an Academy of Coaching Excellence, your certified training organization focuses on a word I can't even pronounce, but I'm going to take a stab at it, ontological coaching. And we're going to get to that because I want to know what the heck that is. And do I need that for myself? A method that shifts attention away from perceptive reactive judgment to a client's adversity and toward how they're responding in the present. And I think that in itself, you have to live through several experiences that take you to near death, take you to the brink, take you to the door, take you to the other side. I'm reading 90 Minutes in Heaven, and I'm like, people come back and they have something to say. What have you got to say for yourself?
Well, Linda, you shared it. I've had 2 life-threatening illnesses. One I was told was terminal, 6 months to live 3 times. And if you want to get a good thing going, when a doctor tells you you've got 6 months to live and you laugh at him, not because it's funny, because you know something different that they don't. And that's what I'm all about, is risk, resilience, and reinvention.
The risk and reinvention I get. Go to that middle piece, that gooey stuff in the middle.
Resilience to me is just like a muscle. Just like your bicep or tricep, you want to exercise it to make it look good and keep in shape. Resilience is the same thing. The more you use it, the better it serves you. And resilience isn't just about getting back up. Resilience is about growing from what happened to you, learning from what happened to you, and then putting something into action that you learned from it.
Well, Tom, you're not just talking about resilience then, you're talking about expansion. Because as an example that I used at the beginning of the bouncing tennis ball that talks about, it's going to bounce back so many times until we know that it loses its, quote, resilience. What we're talking about is something different. You're talking about the capacity, the expansion of your capacity. We say, I can't go on another day. I can't do this one more minute. And yet you laugh at your doctors and say, yeah, bring it, because I know I've got another plan. Get me through that piece of it, because that is the crux of what we're talking about, isn't it?
Linda, I've been radiated so much, I suspect I glow in the dark. And, it's how it is. But I think this whole resilience idea and how you grow from it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Maya Angelou, which is, every storm runs out of rain. And I believe when I talk to somebody...
Wait a minute. Say that again. And my VA, somebody put that across the screen. Eventually, The storm runs out of rain.
Every storm runs out of rain.
Not eventually, not some. Every storm runs out.
And you can take it to another level that's not part of the quote, and remember that behind the storm, the sun is still shining.
We forget that when we're in the midst of the storm, don't we?
We do. I have people talk to me sometimes in my business about this. And people who tell me their life is just growing along like this and nothing's happening to them, they're either not living or they are not living, if you know what I mean. I believe life is a series.
Now, it's kind of hard. Hold on that moment. We do get reminders to our bodies to slow down, or the things that we had taken in we're at capacity. Something's going to blow, Scotty, right? In reference to Star Trek. But when our body is now being assaulted by what the cure is, as you said, you can glow in the dark. You probably set off a few alarms if you're, in your body that are saying enough of this. But once we reach that point of, what am I going through this for? Why did I get this? there's a personal journey in this that you let go and let God, right?
Yes.
Some people don't believe it's God. Maybe they believe it's, I'm living for my child. I'm living for the grandkids. I'm doing this. But eventually you have that moment of truth that you are about to meet your maker. You might as well say hello, right? Some don't want to do it too soon. What role did faith play in turning your life around?
Well, I have a very strong faith. We can call it God, universe, or whatever, but my bigger faith is I know that I'm here to do something. My life is of service to others. I happen to be a philanthropist. I was one of the early employees at Facebook, and I talked to you today. If I had not sold one share of stock, I'd be worth $250 million talking to you today.
God,
But
if
I
we could only see in that crystal ball that moment, I mean, I have experiences like that too, where you bet on the new horse in the stable, right? But we don't hang on to it. We go, no, it wasn't performing. It went down 20 points, so I'm going to let it go, and it goes up 3 million points, right?
No, I sold all mine. I sold it and I don't regret it, because what I've done with what I did get, I'm a philanthropist today. I serve underserved communities, youth in the arts, first gen students, relevant women issues, and some other things I'm passionate about. And that echoes me back to your question is, I know that I'm here to do more. I have wisdom to share with others, and I'm here to be of service to others. And that's what gets me through it.
You spent decades at companies like MCI, Palm, and Facebook. Palm, like the Palm thing. Oh my God.
Our trios, yeah.
If we count these in dog years, you're at least 1,000 years old. Like the Palm Pilot, if I recall correctly, isn't that right?
It was in the trio, yeah. One of the
Oh
very
my
first.
Lord. I remember having, every time there was a new device out, I went and got it. But you consulted for early tech companies and early Fortune 500s. And during that process, is that where you get sick? Talk me through the genesis of your reality.
Yeah, the first illness that I got that was life-threatening was been 36 years ago, and I still live with it today. So, and then the cancer has been 15 years, just 13 metastatic. So no one knew, but during everything about my career, I was sick.
Interesting. I want to pause on that moment for a second. Pause on it for contemplating. You are sick. Were you ever aware of it?
Yes, I was aware of it. Of course, I was aware of it. There was times, I have a book coming out, My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels.
And I want to talk about the high heels. I just want to know if you have a matching bag for it.
Yeah, the business suits are about that corporate career. The hospital gowns are about the experiences when your calendar suddenly clears itself because you have no choice but to surrender. And the high heels, you just may have to read the book. But this thing with illness, one of my favorite stories you'll love is my cancer was prostate. When I had it removed, the doctor came in the next morning and said, "Tom, the nurse told me you wanted to unplug the IV pump for something. What was that for?" And I said, "Well, you can see right here, I needed to plug this power strip in so I could plug in my devices so I could get back to work." So that's sort of the Tom LeNoble way of just keep going on. It's not for everybody, but it worked for me.
That's really funny. Yeah, I remember seeing my mom after one of her many surgeries, and she had back surgery or hip surgery or something. And there was a very well-known composer in the room next to her who had just had hip surgery. And he got up and he was like, "I'm tired of waiting for anybody to come answer something. I'm getting out of here." The guy's bleeding down the side of him. I'm like, "Oh my God." And he went back to work. Is work really that important? Is it so compelling?
Well, it was for me. I think that work for me was really something that I was really driven to do, but it was because I was really engaged with what I was doing, and I felt like I wanted to do my responsibilities. Thus, for me, if I can do it, why sit around and think about what's going on and get up and get involved? And I happen to think, for me anyway, it's proven to me over and over again that re-engaging, whether it's work or just life, relationships, exercise, I got well faster.
That's interesting. Well, some people don't, Tom. So, I will put a shout out to the listeners and to the viewers right now. For those of you that are suffering, laying in a hospital bed, sometimes there is a time for you to sit and just receive. And sometimes that lesson is just to simply receive love. So we can love on you. We can help you through that process. And I think there's less of an ideology around wanting to share our misery. Some people do, Tom. But, when we tend to get sick, we also tend to isolate. Did you isolate?
I think you isolate when you feel bad. And for those people that are sick and lying in a hospital, you have all my compassion and empathy. I've been there. But what I think about it is that when we sit and we dwell on it and we think about what happened to us, sometimes we have to realize there's no do-overs. This is the reality of the situation. And while
There isn't a part 2 or 3.
Yeah, how do we move forward? What's the next step? Because the reality is here we are. What can we do now? What can we do to move forward? And yes, isolation is very important to be able to understand what's happened, what your next moves are, but maybe not isolate too long so you're going down and not feeling good and not getting back up.
So let's stop there and contemplate. We've stopped. We have decisions to make. We have an illness. We have a job to do. We've got people calling us. There's people depending on us. We don't like being sick. We don't like being part of this process. There is a part of you that wants to, nobody ever talked about illnesses the way we do today. I remember my grandmother talked about having a tumor. She had cancer. She didn't have cancer. She had a tumor. That's all she knew was it's a tumor. And we've gone from that to being able to say, oh, you want to look at my owie? See my 25 stitches that hit across my chest that I just had open heart surgery for. So we've come a long way, baby. But we grew up in a culture where pain is hidden. So you didn't really talk about pain. And I think from a male perspective, Tom, talk to me about the resistance to wanting to talk about your pain. Was there a part of you that felt like I'm not the strong he-man that I used to be? Or, if I stay silent, I can be stronger because other people are looking at me. Tell me tell me what's going on there.
Well, like you said, I know I grew up in a household, we called it saving face, where you didn't let other people see what you were going through. And
sure,
it was very common to turn your body over to the doctor and take it back when they were finished with it. Well, that wasn't my approach. I've been actively involved in everything. In fact, I'm the leader of it. I call it my healing wheel, where I have doctors, I have massage, acupuncture, all these different modalities, but I'm in the center and I'm the conductor of the cart. And so I think when you do that, you are able to know that you can be part of what's going on. And I find that being part of it can be more energizing than just being a participant.
I think that's a key thing, because when you feel like you're doing something, you have a sense that you're in control. And I love the fact that you have multiple modalities, because when you consider that the Western medicine only has 3, that is to burn it, to cut it, or to chemicalize it, just throw some drugs at it. It is no wonder that our health system is in crises, from people at the top that say you don't need to vaccinate to, the interesting and controversial discussions that we're having in today. So I appreciate you saying that. Did you ever resent where you were at in this process?
I tried very hard not to, because it doesn't serve anything. I think that I looked at it as there are things that I can do for myself. And I'm asked often, why do I think that I'm still here?
That's a great question. Why do you think you are?
I had great medical care. I had insurance. I had many, many things. But there was one thing I always know that I had. I believed I could be here. And in believing that I could be here, I think it allowed me to do things to support myself, to explore things. So when I've been told, I can remember one time having the cancer return in 5 spots, saying, we can't do anything for you. Well, I'm that kind of person. When somebody says we can't do anything for you, or you can't do anything, I kind of get a little bit of a attitude and kind of go, watch this. And it puts me into
Right?
motion. And I think there's just something we all can't
Key
do it, but there's
characteristic of
something we
resilience.
can. Yeah, give it a little go, give it a little, information is power. Start seeking on your own. Just because one person tells you they have nothing for you doesn't mean it's not out there.
Well, and it just simply means that they haven't read an alternative. They don't know of any alternative. They have no idea what to tell you. And in reading a book about this man that had spent 90 minutes in heaven, his biggest frustration was asking the doctor, where are we at? How's this going to work? And, honestly, we forget that they're human and that they can only tell you what they know. If they don't know that stretching your legs 5 inches or 4 inches when you don't have any bone is going to help you, they don't know when that's going to take place. But you said an important thing, and I think that that's worth repeating, Tom, is that you decided.
Yes.
You decided. They tell you one thing, and in your mind, you're like, you know what? I don't need that. I need to own this. So your health wheel, which is fabulous, which says, okay, here's your modality for this. But now I'm going to add some Eastern medicine, and those Eastern medicine couldn't be all wrong. That acupuncture couldn't have survived thousands of years. We don't have thousands of years of our medical practices here in the United States. I mean, for goodness sakes, we started out with bloodletting and leeches. So you can't trust everything that you see, but you can look at some other things and see the empirical evidence. What led you to those potentialities, like the hands on the body, call it a massage.
Yeah,
needles on the body hitting meridians that would be able to release endorphins, as well as releasing the toxins, so you can get past that point. Talk to me about how you found these things.
Yeah, I think you bring it up well. You look at things that are thousands of years old, and when people tell you they have nothing for you, why not look at something else? But I believe that they wouldn't have lasted this many years if there wasn't something to them. So I was willing to try them, just like I was not willing to try other things. For example, I've been heavily treated. Like I told you, I glow in the dark, but I've never done chemo. I was told to do chemo from the first day, and I said, I'm not doing chemo. Now, other people do. I don't judge people for doing chemo, but it wasn't for me. And I remember I had to look for oncologist after oncologist because they always wanted me to do chemo. And I ended up with the original oncologist, and he said, you've made it this many years without chemo? And I said, I told you I wasn't going to do chemo. And I'm still here. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but for me, I knew it wasn't for me. I did a lot of other stuff, but I didn't do that. And I'm certain that the things that I've done that are what people call alternative, that are core to some cultures, served me well. Not one or the other. It's not this or that. It's the ability to be able to try different things and taking action and being part of it yourself. There's some real power in directing some of what's happening to you and not just turning it over to other people.
I think that that's an important point, because what you said earlier, which was, we came from a culture of just assigning our health to a doctor, and then our body to a doctor, and then when they're done with it, we get it back. Because as we can see, that has failed on colossal levels. And they're only working with the tools that they have available to them. But when we say, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, I can tell you that I have a couple of girlfriends that have survived breast cancer, and in the worst case, gotten both the two worst that you could possibly get. And somehow or another, they have managed to survive against all odds. And I can tell you that I met a young woman like that just recently. And she had gone through chemo the first time, and then it came back. And she just said, I'd rather die than go through chemo again, because we're literally putting poison into our body. And so her choice was, I'm not going to do that. You guys need to go find something else. And, I understand that because, when I also got essentially the death sentence for my now deceased husband, he was told, there's nothing we can do for your stroke. He had a stroke that had a 4-inch occlusion in his carotid artery, and they didn't expect him to live. And had I not been home, he probably would not have survived. He would have had the kind of stroke that Luther Vandross had, who did die. And, the unfortunate circumstances is that we can just take the status quo. We can take what has been handed to us. And we say, oh, thank you, kind person, for giving me this horrible, horrible illness or this complication to my illness. And yet, when you are adamant, and I said, we're in a learning hospital, that may not be available, but you're in a learning hospital and you got to have something here, doc. You can't be relying on what happened for the last 50 years for us to get us out of this mess, because more people are going to be there. And I think when you're willing to be that guinea pig, go ahead, stick me with pins. I'm fine. Did you try alternative solutions as well as some of the other modalities that you went into?
I tried many alternative solutions, and I looked at it like what was right for me. I think that's the thing we all have to do, is think about what's possible and what's right for us. Just like we can say what's not right for us. It's our own journey. It's our own body. We get to call the shots. But don't limit it to just what other people are telling you. Explore a little bit and see what speaks to you. Linda, we're talking about resilience, and one of the things I think about this is something I call terrible gifts. What's a terrible gift?
Tell me more.
You go through something just like you did with your home or your husband, and later in life you look back on it and something out of it sparked something changed something, you grew some way. To me, that's what a terrible gift is. It's not something you would have chose to have happen, but out of it, something did happen. And often when we look back, it shifted something. It allowed us to help others. It allowed us to see something differently. Maybe it made us a little stronger. Maybe it made us a little more cautious. Maybe it made us spot things earlier for ourselves or others. That's what I call terrible gifts.
And thank you for saying that, because I talk about this, having gotten a phone call at 2:00 in the morning, and, a number of things go through your head when you get that call. There are a few options, Tom, it's wrong number, something's wrong, or maybe it's a booty call. I don't know. At this point in my life, that might be interesting. But the point that I'm making is that, we get that notification, we get told, and even though we don't see the evidence, as I jumped up out of my bed, ran to the balcony and looked out, I did not see smoke, I didn't see fire, I didn't see anything, and went back to bed. And exactly the following week, when I get that same message, I'm like, yeah, no. And yet it burned an area the size of 1.5 times the size of Manhattan, 23,000 acres. So
Yeah.
we can do that in our health. We can do that in our business. We can do that in so many ways that we just simply ignore the warnings. Did you
Yes.
ignore the warnings?
I'm so sorry that happened to you, Linda. I live on Maui a part of the time, and I went through the Lahaina
You
fire.
went through this in Lahaina 2 years ago.
I did. Well, that day there were 8 fires, and it ended up being 2, one in Kula and one in Lahaina. And Lahaina's tragic, but Kula, where I live, at the end of my road, you look up and there's 21 houses gone. I didn't know if my house was there for 5 days. I was flying there that day and canceled it. That's a horrible thing to go through, but it's happened. It's done. Now, what do you do with what's left?
That's right.
And I think that's the key, is how do you move forward? Remember, every storm runs out of rain.
I love that expression, and that I'm literally going to put that on a t-shirt or on a hat, literally, because today you coach executives, you lead nonprofit strategy retreats, and you work privately with individuals that are navigating this. And in addition to that, you are providing some operational solutions to tech companies. As a speaker, as a coach, as an author on resilience, what's at the top of that pyramid that you have to go through in that coaching, which involves letting go of some past hurts?
I really believe that these things that I do are of service to others. I have some wisdom to share from what I've been through. And so I think that when we look at these things that have happened, It's you asked earlier about ontology, the ontological approach. Well, ontology is the study of being, just like psychology is the study of your mind, your dreams, your thoughts, just like cosmology is the study of the stars. There's the study of ontology, which is the study of being. So what we look at in this model is how are you being and how is it serving you to reach your goals and dreams and what you came here to do. So that's how we look at that. So in my practice, that's the model that I use when I'm working with others, whether it be individual and teams or whatever. Are you doing what you need to be doing or want to be doing that helps you reach your goals and dreams? So it's not about what happened to you at 5. It's not about your last relationship. It's about how are you being and what is going on in your life today that you can shift or look at maybe a little differently to keep you moving forward.
The moving forward looks absolutely impossible when you are in the throes of something that happens immediately. And I would like to explore that with you for a moment, because I think there are a few stages. You know, my home was in contract to be sold at the time that it burned to the ground. I had other plans. I was going to Portugal. I was doing so many other things that when life happens and you're automatically put at a stop sign where you can't move forward, whether it's in your health, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your relationship, there are things that you can do to occupy your mind. And for me at that time, I kept getting phone calls from agents that were saying, hey, want to sell your house? And it was like, a stab, throwing cold water on me. It was horrible. And I went through a metamorphosis, and I'm gonna believe that other people do too. And I would love for you to confirm or deny that that's typical, or if it's just, I had one heck of an experience. But I went from horrible, awful, crying to wondering, were these people monsters or morons, to then finding, and I knew that I had stepped over to the other side of the threshold into recovery when I found my humor. My humor is often marked with sarcasm. And so when people would call me and say, would you like to sell your house? I said, yeah, I'm having a fire sale. Right? It was my defense. But thereafter, I understood that agents were really suffering with using old tools, and out of that misery, I found a solution that would help agents find a way to communicate with people like me, because I'm not your normal human being. When you have gone and experienced through this and somebody walks up to you and says, I know exactly how you feel, you want to punch them in the nose, right? Unless they've actually physically experienced it, they don't know how you feel. So to hear that, and now today I have a product that I offer to agents that teaches them or gives them the tools to be able to build content that communicates with people that have gone through disasters. So that to me is a silver lining. And I could give you other examples of silver lining, but when you focus on a solution, it's hard to stay in the moment of misery, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And Linda, what you just described is you got a terrible gift. You would have never, ever chosen that to happen. But
No,
what you did,
not.
you looked at it and you realized it did happen and I need to move on. And as a result, you got what we could call a gift out of it. You turned it around and look what you did with it. Life is a series of ups and downs. It's not just a flat line. It's
Thank
a series
God.
of ups and downs. And I believe the downs are the place that we get challenges, that we get to learn. We get to experience things that we may not choose to, but we get to learn, a choice whether we learn them. And those up times are where we get to express what we learned, knowing that there's probably going to be another little dip some point in time. But what you're describing is exactly what I call a terrible gift. Life happens. You can wallow in it, or you can try and do something with it and move forward. Personally, I think the best option is to spend a few minutes there to know that it happened, whatever time that takes. Stomp your feet, shed a tear, whatever it takes.
Punch a pillow, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, you're going to have to move on at some point. So it's time to know that what you got was a terrible situation, and how can you find a gift out of it when the time is right?
Oh my goodness, that's miracle magic right there. For our viewers, I know that they're already asking, how do we reach you? So I'm hoping that we can drop across the screen a way to find you. You're at your website is tomlenoble.com. You've also got Ace Coach Training, but you've got a couple of things, and I love it when people give away free gifts. And part of our free gifts are part of us. So I hope that you'll accept this. You got something called the 5 performance traps even high achievers fall into. And I believe you are such a generous man. I feel like it's Christmas, and here's Santa Claus, because we've got 3 things that, if I'm looking at my screen correctly, is that right?
Oh, I might even have a 4th one. Who knows?
Oh my goodness. So I want to say that there's a gift for each one of his setbacks, because his setback was his setup for his comeback. The 5 performance traps even high achievers fall into, and then how to recognize and overcome the subtle patterns that hold you back without sacrificing your drive. Now, I'm going to say that's going to be a really long URL, so I'm going to guess that you got a simpler one than that. But if you're trying to overcome your subtle patterns, hard to tell when you're in a subtle pattern unless you see it. It's kind of like growth. When you go, when as a kid, you go up to the doorway and you mark off how high you're growing. We can't see our growth until we see it in retrospect. So I appreciate the fact that you said what you did, which is you got to go through it. Nobody gets out of this life alive, not that I'm aware of. And if there's no straight line unless you are flatlined, right? So
That's it.
You're going to have, valleys. You're going to have mountaintops. You're going to have a few hills. You're going to have a few craggy things you've got to find your footing in. But finding that subtle way of being able to get back, the subtle pattern, holding us back without sacrificing your drive, I think that's all key. Let me ask you a question. We're getting ready to wrap up, and I would really hope that you would tell us what you hope your readers or your clients take away from your story.
Well, I want to share with you the other thing they can find on my website is something called the riskability factor. So I encourage you to go there. And right on the front page, you can get the prologue to my book, My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels. It's taking 3 really...
Tell us something about those high heels, Tom. I want to know that story.
You're going to have to read the book, but these are 3 what used to be disparate parts of my life.
Just the cliffhanger that we all needed, isn't it?
You're taking different parts of your life. Sometimes we're embarrassed by them. We think people just won't understand. But who you are today is the sum of all your parts that you have experienced. And this book shares with you, the reader, how you rise above it. If you go to my website right now, you can get the prologue as a sneak peek. So it's tomlenoble.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on any of the social media sites, and I hope to see you there soon.
That is just a whole mouthful. I have one introspective question, as if I haven't asked enough of them. But Tom, what would you say to that 30-year-old Tom today?
I would say to that 30-year-old Tom, hang in there. Things are going to be better than you ever believed. Just keep believing. Trust your faith. Trust your own voice. And trust that you know the answer.
Sometimes we just don't believe ourselves. And in fact, we'll go out to our committee. We ask our friends, we ask our spouses, we ask our loved ones, we ask the crystal ball, we look at our horoscope. But what you just said is speak to that truth, because that truth within us will tell us the answer. Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your message. And I really wish you the best of success. I can't wait to see the book, because I can't wait to read if you had a matching handbag with those heels.
Maybe a matching boa.
I'd like that even better. Thanks, Tom.
Have a good one, Linda. It was great to be with you.
My pleasure. And thank you all for joining us today. I just love it. I love every one of our guests. I'm so happy that I changed the momentum in the stories that we're talking about and that we're telling ourselves today or listening to each other, because I want you to know you're not alone and we can build back better. Thanks again. Season 3 of Money Talk isn't just about money. It's about recovery, resilience, and expansion, so you can build back better. Your house doesn't have to burn to the ground, but if your business or your life has, and you're ready to share your story, I want to talk to you. Contact me at LindaKay360 or call me at 424-395-2885. Remember, your setback is a setup for a comeback. And I promise you, you'll inspire others to get back up one more time with your story.